You have these moments of like just extreme gratitude, like, this is insane. And then I see Patrick Stewart and Macon Blair walking through a death metal show together. I'm just like, how the fuck did this happen? And I still don't know how it actually happened, but it certainly did.
Hey, I'm Evan Husney, and this is Vice Talks Film. Today we're joined by Jeremey Saulnier, the director behind the neo-Nazi versus punks thriller Green Room, which is one of the most viscerally intense films I've seen in years.
Sound check in 15, you're on in 20.
There's been a stabbing!
Stop! In the room, go!
Cops are on the way.
We haven't done anything.
Doesn't matter.
We sit and we wait.
And we die.
Not if you sit and you wait.
Where are the police?
They've come and gone. Got a little complicated. Gentlemen, it won't end well.
Maybe she's not dead. There's not a lot of blood.
Oh, fuck, man. No.
Holy shit.
Things have gone south. No doubt.
We gotta go. Shoot who's left.
Let him bleed.
You're coming.
Here we go.
Careful now.
He's got 3 shots! 2 shots! 1 shot!
Zero.
This'll be over soon, gentlemen.
Jeremey, man, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah. So I just wanted to start out by saying, like, it's really rare to see a movie about punks that feels punk in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it seems like a lot of narrative portrayals of punks sort of feel like they're made by somebody without an awareness much for the scene, you know?
Yeah.
And when I'm watching your movie, it feels like it's totally something that's close to you personally.
I think why it exudes the proper amount of punk or hardcore or grindcore, because it has a lot of different sort of subgenres within it, is because it's unmolested and we embrace the world, we inhabit it, and then we let it go. We don't give a shit. We don't talk about punk. I spent a lot of my formative years in the 90s as a teenager going to hardcore shows and being in a hardcore band.
So how did that, like, you know, being into punk music and stuff, how did that transition into filmmaking?
It's weird. I always had this sort of kinetic and athletic association with all these things. I started out in the mid 80s as a skate punk, and at the same time I was learning how to make movies with the same friends I was in bands with. On the weekends we'd also make zombie flicks, so it was always intertwined because of the energy and the athleticism and the just a great outlet for people who don't want to do organized sports. So my entry into film, you know, while I was skateboarding over here, I was like doing arts and crafts and making dioramas and blowing up G.I. Joe figures and all these things. I was like alone in my house doing special effects techniques. I'd buy weird blank guns from overseas and it's like, whoa, with that ejected shells.
But it's also at that time when you were making these movies with your friends and playing in bands that you also met your, you know, sort of frequent collaborator Macon Blair as well, right? So he was showing up in these movies as well, I'm guessing?
Oh yeah, he was always a part of my cinematic upbringing. I mean, we were in, we made our first movie together like in, I think I was in 6th grade. I think it was 87 or 88. That first film that Macon and I and a bunch of our friends did was called Mega Cop.
Oh man, suck mine! Oh.
Very much inspired by, well, a little bit of Verhoeven, but
RoboCop.
A lot of Michael Mann, like Miami Vice. It was like cartel action. So cut to 4 years later, and I was walking down the street, and Macon drives by in his 1976 Pontiac Ventura, and they were actually going to film the sequel to Mega Cop.
Oh, really?
They were still doing Mega Cop shit, which was tempera paint in Ziploc bags for blood, you know, and you just smash it on your chest. I was able to just that day bring a bunch of ladyfingers and condoms, sort of more of the Dick Smith style, like blood, and we go up, and I introduced this advanced squib technology to them, and I was instantly sort of initiated into the gang. So
I didn't tell you this interview is going to be completely about MegaCop.
Good, because actually I'm going to re-release that shit.
You should, yeah. I'll put it out. You guys were just going around making movies.
And these are the same guys that are in the punk rock bands. You know,
Right.
we did everything together as a posse.
That's
All
awesome.
throughout high school.
Macon Blair is in a lot of your films. He's in Blue Ruin, your film that you made prior to Green Room. He's also in Green Room as Gabe, one of the neo-Nazis.
Yeah, Macon has sort of been my muse
Right.
for a long time. He's kind of like who I write for. And I built Blue Ruin completely around him because it takes a while to break through, to get the trust to make a movie, and we just
Right.
kind of engineered it for ourselves. Like I'll direct it, he'll star in it, we'll put everything into it, and it was great to kind of finally show the world how great an actor he was.
Then I would imagine, that film premiered at Cannes, which is awesome. And from that point, you probably were approached with a couple of different opportunities, and you decided to make Green Room. What was the sort of process behind that?
Things start to align when you're offered a whole lot of choices. What it came down to was Green Room was a film that I honestly thought that only I could make right then and there. I mean, certainly I wanted to purge myself of that adolescent love of genre filmmaking and also have an archive, because look at me now, you wouldn't say, like, hey, it's Jeremy hardcore, like,
right.
no, I'm square.
Yeah.
But it was such a huge part of my life, and it defined so much about me. So I wanted to just archive my knowledge of it and say goodbye. And I wouldn't have made Green Room 4 films from now. I think I would have lost touch with the whole scene and what I loved about it.
Music is shared live. It's time and aggression. You gotta be there. And then it's over.
In watching the film, you bring a lot of humanity and authenticity to not only the characters, but the scene and everything else. And even the white supremacist characters, have a humanity to them as well, which is quite interesting. What was that? Was that a sort of challenge to, with the actors to sort of balance that world and to keep it authentic to the way you wanted to, where it's not too heavy-handed into being, we're making a punk movie, like you were saying earlier?
The thing was, by casting against type, it was relatively easy once we had the ensemble on board. So it was just about being authentic, but not so much too punk. In the punk rock scene, yes, there are people who show up with a certain bent ideology and aggression, and they're in uniform, and they model themselves after gangs or soldiers, and that seemed like great adversaries. And it wasn't about so much their political views. It just seemed like native to the environment. And then so knowing that Nazis would be low-hanging fruit for cinematic villains.
Right.
They're sort of prepackaged bad guys.
Right.
It was about injecting humanity and addressing how is punk used as a recruiting tool? What are they harnessing from the kids? Is it are the kids looking for a place to call home, for people, for respect? Just they want to belong, and I think punk channels a certain amount of aggression. And it's often used by the white supremacist movement. It's to recruit kids, and then you kind of distort whatever aggression they have or issues they might have. You can channel it somewhere very unhealthy. Yeah.
So much of independent film financing, getting movies off the ground with financiers or producers, is reliant on casting in today's day and age. And the idea to cast Patrick Stewart in this movie is brilliant. How did that come about?
Patrick had just joined Anonymous Content, my management company.
Got it.
And I think an assistant there said, "Pass, because new client. How about Patrick Stewart?" I was like, "Patrick Stewart, come on, Patrick Stewart." And then I started getting these text messages of photos of him, sort of not in his superhero garb, but just bearded and kind of, a little more lived in. And then I was like, "Holy shit! This is not even me just saying yes to say yes. He looks more like the references that I was doing for research than anybody else we even talked about." And so when he's interested, it was let's jump on the phone. And Patrick was gracious and kind and had all the right questions. And I remember it was a really tough time for the production because we had everything in place, but we needed a big Darcy to make it go. And we were deep into pre-pro.
Wow.
So he I think came on board 10 days before production.
Wow. Yeah, just go right into it.
And so he's certainly not a superhero in my movie.
Right.
He played that part outside and I think saved the whole film. And that's one of those like bizarre, serendipitous things that just, looking back, he's the only Darcy. He is the perfect Darcy. He's the bad guy. He's the villain, but he does not have a sadistic intent throughout the movie. He's trying to clean something up.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
And so my job was to not give a shit about X-Men or Star Trek. It's just like, what's he going to do on my set? Does he want to be here? And he came and sort of just melted into the ensemble and he brought his craft and his good intentions.
And so how did he respond to the material? He was super stoked on it, or he's fascinated?
He has this amazing story. I mean, like he was at his secluded house in England, and he was given Blue Ruin, and he dug it. He responded to the tension, and then he started reading Green Room. He considered it a page turner, but he got to page 40 and just stopped, and he went around his house all alone and turned on all the perimeter lights and locked all the doors and windows.
Whoa. And
was scared shitless. And then he sat down, and I think he had a tall drink and finished it. And he loved the allure of playing this character. I mean, he wanted to shake things up. You have these moments of like just extreme gratitude, like, this is insane. And then I see Patrick Stewart and Macon Blair walking through a death metal show together. I'm just like, how the fuck did this happen? And I still don't know how it actually happened, but it certainly did.
Yeah, it's cool to see like how you have like a veteran actor like him, and you're kind of seeing that. It seems almost more and more with like other films that are coming out. Like these actors get to that point in their career where like, I've done all these things. I want to try something new, and you know, for him to want to be like, I'm going to play this character is really awesome. Yeah, I think for him.
Yeah, we were able to showcase his range, you know, and his scenes are intimate and quiet. And he remarked during the shoot that it was the quietest performance he had ever given on stage or screen.
Shoot who's left. Let him bleed.
Get ready to run.
Here we go. One of the most appealing aspects to the movie, to me, like aside from, you know, the setting or the concept or the cast or whatever, is the fact that this is like a single location movie. You know, like single location movies are great. And that's also such a great setting for like a siege movie too, I feel like, because you haven't really seen that. Was that always part of the design of the movie, that this would basically take place in sort of like a single room or a single space?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I thought it was a great concept, and as many filmmakers know, when they're on the outside of the industry, it's just to get an idea done first is a huge coup. And then having been in, you know, around music and at venues for so long, the green room is the coolest sort of siege scenario I could think of, if it's surrounded by a live performance. Like, there's so much kinetic energy that you can harness. And the punk hardcore aesthetic is, again, it's like Mad Max for cheap. It's so awesome. It's so rich.
And also by setting it in the green room, it's like there's one way in, one way out as well. You know, as a vehicle for attention. You know.
Right. So so the whole concept of the green room during a live performance, that was the first thing. So once I sat down to write it, the first 15 pages came really fast. I got them locked in that room, and then it was all brand new. So I had no idea what was going to happen. I started just kind of intuitively write from one side of the door and then switch gears, then go to the other side of the door. I would call it cat and mouse, but it's not that smart. It's kind of just like a clusterfuck. And that's what I love to explore, is clusterfucks.
Excuse me, y'all.
Oh, shit.
Have you thought about what the reaction a neo-Nazi would have to your movie?
I've thought about it, and my only responsibility is treat every character like a human being. And as the film progresses, again, we don't get too much into ideology at all. It's really about stripping people from the ideology and their labels, and it's about when shit hits the fan, they're forced to become just human beings. This is not about any one group of people.
Right.
This is about the scene and about the energy and a good old-fashioned siege thriller. So
yeah. For me, one of the most affecting parts of the movie is, yes, the movie is really violent, it's brutal, it's gruesome, but you have a lot of decisions that you made about how you utilized violence. Like, all the major violent moments of the movie aren't accompanied by sound effects or music or like any of the other enhancements that are there. It's just there on screen. you know, and that makes it very unsettling and very realistic.
I have a lot of reverence for my characters, and I think the violence in my movies is often a highlight because it's a gut punch when you watch people die in my movies.
Right.
I think it's more responsible. I think when you watch movies where 85 people get killed during one awesome set piece scene, and you don't give a shit about any of them.
No.
It's a little disturbing. So I at least use it as like a really powerful narrative tool. And make it unsettling. And sometimes it's euphoric, not because of someone dying, because someone's surviving. And I'm very particular about maintaining that reverence throughout. And just as I wrote it, I didn't plan on anyone to die. I just, when they made bad decisions or got caught and there was no solution, and they were up against an aggressor with a machete or a pit bull or a shotgun,
right,
and they would die in my fictional real world,
right,
they would die.
Right.
And it would be heartbreaking. I'd stop writing the script and be like, I just lost somebody. That's terrifying. Even on set, it was a gut punch. Now, the arts and crafts of the element of actual special effects and makeup is delightful. It's so fun to see, to sell a gag, you know. That's great. But it's all about, there's certain rules I abide by, and I break them. But usually, if someone dies, it's quick, it's brutal, it's awkward. Now, if you'll notice, there's some amazing gratuitous close-ups of dope makeup effects.
Of course.
That's usually non-fatal. So I'll let it linger on screen and have a little fun if it's non-fatal.
But there's almost like, in some of the cases, there isn't much build-up to it, though. Like there's a scene in the movie where it's just like you're watching it, it's happening, all of a sudden dude just gets like sliced open with a box cutter.
Yeah.
And there's like just no...
Well,
there's
certain times where, you know, I'm rubbing people's face in it. I use it just to keep the heart rate up, to make it exciting, to make it an experience.
And lastly, just so we have an out here, are you working on anything, like, did you have your next project lined up?
For me, it's, I've only made movies, like I start with a blank page on a laptop. I'm turning 30, gotta make a movie. Oh shit, I'm having a third kid, gotta make a movie. Oh, that one did well, gotta make another one quick before people find out I'm a fraud. I have always motivations like, yeah, I gotta do this. But now I've got several projects in development. One in particular that might be greenlit in a week. So they're all very exciting. I'm gonna take a break from writing and just do some directing. After those, I will get back to the writer's chair, because I think writing is the most pure experience. It's unfiltered creativity, and it's a great sort of therapeutic experience for a storyteller. But yeah, so who knows what's next? But the options are more than I ever dreamt of. So it's exciting for me.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It was awesome.